Hello. Happy Halloween. I thought I might get into the Halloween spirit with you guys and tell you some ghost stories, some ghostly encounters that I personally have experienced. So this is on the theme of mainly haunted houses. So this is interesting. And another story as well. So I don't usually really celebrate Halloween as such because a few years ago we lost one of my very close friends. He passed away on Halloween. So that's why I haven't been making, well, that's why there isn't any Halloween content on my channel at all, other than the content I'm putting out now, because it's sad, you know, it's really sad. So whenever I think of Halloween, I think of that. But I can't cry about it forever. I have to move forwards, you know, as hard as it is. So anyway, without further ado, I'm going to tell you some ghost stories. So, the first one, it's not haunted house related, but it's one I wanted to add in anyway. So, when I was really young, I'm trying to remember how old, I must have been about 6 or 7 years old, I think. I got my first ever touchscreen phone, and it was a Sony Ericsson P900 or something like that. If you're curious, you can Google it. And as I said, it was a touchscreen phone. And I was at my grandparents' house and it was late at night, and the phone was on the table, in like pretty much in front of me, and I was sat on the bunk beds, because there was bunk beds there, and I'm not joking, the phone, it brought up the call screen and 999 was pushed out of nowhere, which is the emergency services number in England, the UK, England. Anyway, it's the emergency services number, which means you can access the police, the fire brigade, you know, medical, like emergency, like paramedics and ambulances, you know, and it didn't just push the numbers, it clicked call, so it was literally the phone, like something, I don't know how it happened, it was really scary at the time, and I'm not joking. It punched 999 call, and it would call the emergency services and they'd be like, what do you need? And I got scared and hung up, and of course they called back. So when I answered it, actually, did I answer it? No, I think that was what it was. My grandma or my granddad or both came upstairs just in general, and I was like saying to them, like hysterically, I was like, my phone is calling the emergency service, and I was panicking, and they were just like, you know. And I don't remember a lot, but all I remember is the phone doing it again, and they were there, and it called, and the dispatcher was like, what's your emergency? My grandparents were just like, no, we don't want anything. And that's all I can remember, but it was terrifying. And I also remember that once I got home from my grandparents' house, I never used that phone again. I was so scared. And as far as I remember as well, because it was so long ago, it didn't happen again with any other phones that I got, and even at my grandparents' house, it never happened again. But it was so scary. Really scary. Imagine like a child with their phone and it's calling the emergency services. I don't remember much about that other than what I've just said, but scary. And I want to get on to the haunted house elements of this video. So, the one that was crazy, we went to view a house. This was, when was this? I was 14 years old, I think. Yeah, so when we were looking to move house from one town to another, very locally, my dad had like an aspiration to live on a certain road, certain street, because it's considered as a really nice place to live, I suppose. So we went to view a house on this road, and it was an old house, and we were there with the estate agents, so the real estate agents, and they were showing my parents round and me. They were showing us round, and I remember getting kind of bored because I didn't really like this house. I went in and it was just very backdated. You could tell that older people had lived there. So they were in the living room and I went upstairs to one of the bedrooms, and I was looking around and there was like furniture still. And I was thinking, well, if they've moved out completely, then why is there still furniture here? And I opened the wardrobe and there was like underwear in there, but it was like granny, granny underwear, like really just old and just, what you would expect. And I was laughing, and bear in mind I was 14 years old, and all of a sudden I remember feeling the energy change in the room, and it felt really horrible. It felt kind of angry, and in like my head or somewhere I heard a voice say, "Get out," but it was a really angry voice, and I could tell it was a man, like an old man, like much older. And I was like, oh. And I stopped what I was doing and I went straight out the room, and I went downstairs to join my parents. And I didn't say anything because the real estate agent was there, and it would have been awkward. So they finished the tour of the house, and then we left. And in the car, my parents were saying, "Oh, we'd really like that house, we're thinking of getting it." And I was like, no. And I was just like, I don't want to live there, we can't move there. And they were like, why not? We will make it modern, we'll modernise it, we'll do stuff to it. And I was like, no, you don't understand. There's somebody in that house that can't let go of that house, that's still there, that won't cross over to the afterlife because they love the house. They're really upset about people viewing the house. So it was, for me, it was just terrifying. And I said to my parents, look, no. So they were like, well, what are we going to say to the estate agents? And my mum just says to the estate agent, look, can't have the house because our daughter has just said to us that she had an encounter with a spirit or a ghost upstairs. I didn't see anything with my eyes, but I felt energy and I heard a voice, basically. So it's like that. But she told the estate agent about that, and she says, oh, which room is that? And she says, oh, the bedroom at the front of the house. And she was like, oh. the old man did die in there. And my mum was like, okay. And thankfully, we didn't buy that house because of me. Otherwise, my parents would have bought it. But my parents ended up buying a house further up the road, I suppose, on the other side of the road. Further up from this house, towards the beginning of the road. And we ended up living there, and my parents modernised that house instead. But I had quite a few encounters there as well, but I will explain now. So, when I was in my 3rd year at university, I was in my student accommodation, and it's really hard to explain, but I saw my posters like moving, like wind. It felt like wind or something, and I thought, oh, maybe it's the heater. It wasn't the heater because it wasn't on. And I was like, okay. And the window was closed, and there was nothing to make that happen. And I also, this was a long time ago, so it's really hard to remember, but I felt like a whooshing, like a whoosh across the room, and I was just like, hello? And once I had an occasion where I'd just eaten dinner or something, and there was a bowl here on the table, like the desk, with like knives and forks and stuff in the bowl. No, across the bowl or something. And I saw something, and I'm being serious, something, like, here's the bowl, the dinnerware, it went like that, backwards, and fell into the bowl. And I was just like stunned. I was just like, what is going on? Really odd. But other than that, I didn't, in my student accommodation at all, in 1st, 2nd and 3rd year, I never really had anything. I'm trying to remember if there's any other encounters. Don't think so. But anyway, so, when I moved out of there, it's almost as if something followed me to my parents' house when I moved back, but like when I graduated and moved back. So I would have stuff like the floorboards would creak, like it was an old house, but nobody was upstairs, because upstairs was my domain, really. Like, we had downstairs bedrooms at that house, and my parents were just, at night, they would be downstairs, and it would just be me upstairs. And I would hear the floorboards creak, and sometimes in the kitchen the kettle would flick. It still happens at this new house now, my parents' new house that I live in with them. And sometimes there'd be like tapping sounds on the glass, but there would be nobody there. Same with the front door sometimes. And the heater in my room, there'd be noise, and sometimes things would just get knocked off the tables in my room, or the heater, or somewhere where I displayed things. It would just, something that would just knock it down and like laugh about it. It was really odd. I'm trying to think of another occasion. There was quite a few. So I'm probably missing some, but honestly, genuinely. And as well, in the final days where we lived in that house, my parents got their bed like flat packed and sorted, because their bed is made out of really solid wood, you know. And so my mum slept upstairs and my dad slept in one of the downstairs bedrooms, just because basically, gonna be honest, the dogs, they don't leave any room in the bed. Like, they spread out and they kick in the night, and it's just a lot. So sometimes my parents will just, you know, sleep in separate beds purely for that reason, genuinely. So my mum said to me one of the days, she was like, I could, you know, yeah, she says to me, you know how you were saying about you can hear the floorboards when no one's walking on them? And I was like, yeah. And she was like, I hear that too. Oh, and as well, the toilet would make a dripping sound. And my mum had her office up there, and she used to get so frustrated with it. She'd shut the bathroom door, and she even got some kind of plumber to look at the toilet, and they were just like, there's nothing wrong with it. So there was that as well. There were so many things, honestly. And one of the nights, I think one or two of the nights, I felt something heavy, like I was lying down in my bed. I felt something kind of almost like it was on me. I'd like to think that I got this impression that they were like guarding me whilst I'm asleep or something. But I don't fully understand what happened, but it was something like that. They were just over me, and then I woke up in the middle of the night and I still felt it, and I was like, oh, they're still here. And what else? Like in January 2020, when I had COVID, I felt a stampede of people rush through the door and like laugh, and I was like, I said to them in my head, I says, okay, you could stay, but don't touch my feet, because I was really hot because I was unwell, and my feet were out of the blankets, whereas my rest of my body, the blanket was over me. And they like touched my ankle. They started laughing because it wasn't my feet or something, and I was just like really annoyed. And it's almost as if there was people there. And I had that a lot, and I've never spoken about it before, but I had that a lot. And as well, my bedroom door would be like opening like that. And sometimes I'd say stop and the door would stop, and I'd be like, okay. Honestly, genuinely, there were so many instances like that. So that road, there must be something going on. But the weird thing is, I lived at my parents' house from the age of 14 to 18, and then I didn't live there for 3 years for university, and then I came back and lived there from the age of 21 to 25 before we moved house to this house that I'm currently filming in. And it was only after I graduated university that these things started happening, like age 21 to 25, non-stop. So that's really interesting. But anyway, this video, I'm so sorry that it's so long, but anyway, I'm going to tell you the last one now, and then I'm going to end the video. So, the last one, when we were looking for a house to move to, from the house I was just talking about to this one that I'm currently in, it was my mum's birthday, and we went to view a house not too far away from this one, and it was very backdated again, but we went inside and it was just me, my mum and the real estate agent, and we were on the ground floor, and I didn't like this house because it was so backdated and it just didn't feel very nice. But anyway, so there was like a kitchen and you walk through, and there was a garage or a garage if you are in the US or Canada. So there was a garage / garage there, and the garage door, there was like space up here where like air could get in, and I think it was the same at the bottom as well, but I can't remember. And there was also, opposite to the garage, yeah, was an ensuite bathroom. It was like a, well, you know what I mean, there's like a bathroom there, like a toilet, sink, I think that was it. And I heard a voice, like just a really happy, kind of calm voice, say, hi. was a ventilation issue in the house, and I thought they meant from the garage door that I was looking at, because there was an air gap at the top, like where it was exposed. I just thought it was that, so I was just like, okay. Until we went upstairs. Upstairs, the carpets were disgusting. They were a candy floss pink colour, the carpets, and the very edges, like the perimeter of the rooms, were black. Like the edges of the rooms on the carpet was black, but everywhere else was candy floss pink. It was disgusting. And I didn't know what caused that. None of us knew what caused it until we went home, and our family friend, who owns a carpet and upholstery cleaning service, came over to visit my mum for her birthday. And my mum asked them casually, says, oh, why do you think the carpets had black edges? What is that about? And she says, oh, we see that quite often in houses sometimes. It's basically where there's a ventilation issue in the floorboards, so all the dust and dirt goes up through the floorboards and disperses into the corners of the rooms, and that's what causes the black edges. And there is no way of getting the staining out. You have to replace the carpets completely, or more importantly, you have to fix the floorboards and make sure the ventilation issue isn't a problem. And on the way home, I made my mum aware of what I'd heard from this spirit in the house. So at this point, when she heard our friend talking like this, she was like, oh, well, Steff heard this voice, and it's, you know, and it was like, oh my God. And it was just crazy. And this house, it needed a lot of money thrown at it. And I said to my mum, look, no, like, the spirit's nice. It's a completely different scenario to when I encountered a spirit in the other house, because the spirit in the other house was angry and it was tied to the house. Didn't want to leave and cross over to the other side because they weren't ready yet to cross over. They weren't ready yet, you know. Whereas this one was just happy and fine, and it was kind of just passing through. It was kind of just, I'm just here for the fun of it, not because I've got any kind of emotional connection to the house. I'm just here, you know. It was like that. So if we did move into that house and my parents spent all the money renovating and all of that, I could have just got some Palo Santo wood if I wanted to and just smudged them out, you know, and just said a little kind of, you know, said my piece, and would have said like that I invite the good into this house and that I extract the evil. You know, I would have came up with something to say whilst I am waving the Palo Santo wood to smudge out spirits. Whereas the guy that I first told you about, the haunted house, it wouldn't have worked really as such because he was determined. You know, maybe it could, maybe, but not really. But anyway, so there was that. So completely different, two different scenarios. But we ended up not moving there, thank God, and we moved to this house, obviously, that I'm sat in right now. But anyway, this video is way too long, but thank you so much for watching to the end. And if any of you have any ghost stories or anything like that, please comment down below. Let me know. I'm always really interested. Or if you have any spirit related questions, feel free to ask that as well. And happy Halloween if you're watching this on Halloween. And I hope you have a great Halloween. And I'll see you in another video. Bye.